it's Rebecca Mickey here and welcome to the Sleep Tips video. In this video, I'm going to be talking all about transitioning from the swaddle, when we need to do it and actually the easiest way to go about it. So when should your child start transitioning out of the swaddle? They need to be unswaddled when they're confidently and comfortably rolling from their back to their front. Now this does come a little later after they roll from their front to their back. That's much easier for them to do. But when they start rolling from their front to their back, that may be when you want to think about transitioning your child, beginning that transition for your child out of the swaddle. We don't want them being able to get from their back to their front whilst they're swaddled. Then they're kind of stuck, they're not able to push up. So when they're doing that, we want them to be completely out of the swaddle. So normally this is sometime after 4 months of age. For some children it really does vary as to when they're confidently and comfortably rolling over, but it's generally after 4 months of age and before 6 months of age. So what is the best way to transition your child out of the swaddle? Well, to be honest, it depends on what they're swaddled in and how they're swaddled. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of families, and I've found that when a child is swaddled without their arms pinned to their sides, they actually have a much easier time transitioning from the swaddle. So you may want to go in a slower process. If your child is swaddled with their arms down to their sides, you may want to think about transitioning them to a swaddle where that isn't the case. You can do an arms up swaddle. You can just use a receiving blanket or a sheet for that. There are also products that you can buy that have swaddled with the arms in front of the chest or the arms up. You can transition your child from being swaddled arm down to the side to one of these swaddles, then move on to the next step of being arms out. They may actually have a much easier time with that transition. When arms are to the chest or arms are up, children just have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more movement, and it's much easier to go to arms being completely out. I'm sure you can imagine why that would be. So, when your child is comfortable with their arms either at their chest or their arms up, you can begin swaddling maybe by starting with just moving one arm out of the swaddle. Now obviously this does depend how they're swaddled. If you are using a receiving blanket, this is a little bit easier. I do know that some companies that make the swaddles that have the arms to the chest and the arms up do make transition swaddles, which have little snaps at the arms, and you can just unsnap those and then you can have one of the arms out. So you can just start by having one arm out and then the other arm continuing to stay in the swaddle. If you're swaddling with a receiving blanket, you can do the same. So your child has this one arm out. That will be easier for them than having both arms out. So you may want to have 3 nights with them being swaddled with just one arm out and then moving to 2 arms out. Now, sleep is going to be a little bit different as we're making this transition. This is something that's completely new for your child. They've been very much used to having arms contained and now they're not. They've either got one arm out or then you're getting to the 2 arms out. Arms can really move around, and so you may find that sleep gets a little bit wonky as we start making this transition. So don't worry too much about this, and you can't let this put you off making this transition, because this is something for safety's sake that you need to do. Expect sleep to get a little bit challenging. Should only be 3-4 nights maybe when we are then having that disturbed sleep before we're getting back to better sleep. And I think that's what throws a lot of people, is they have a challenging night and they just think, well, this isn't working. Whenever we make any changes with sleep, it is going to take your child a little while to adjust to the new way of sleeping. So don't be worried and don't be concerned if your child has struggles to fall asleep and is having more wake-ups. Help them and give them the help that they need without over-helping. And what I mean by that is, does your child just need you to put your hand on that arm that won't stop waving around just so that they can just steady and can just slow down, and they can stop, and then they can fall asleep? Do they actually need you to shush or to pat them a little bit? Do they need to be picked up? But you add more and more help, starting with the minimal help and adding more and more. That way you're not constantly over-helping. The more over-helping we do, the more that this will become a new habit. And we don't want that to be becoming a new habit. You're potentially having to be holding your child to get to sleep. They need to be able to do this a little bit more independently. They may need a little bit more help getting there. So don't be afraid to give them the help that they need. If you find that you're stuck, you then need to work on gently getting less and less involved. So it may be if your child is needing your hand on their chest or on their arm, that you can just put it on there to soothe, and then you're moving away, your hand away then as they're falling asleep, because we don't want to start introducing ways of helping your child to sleep and getting back to sleep, which is then going to become a new habit. I don't want you becoming your child's swaddle and having to keep their arms still whilst they're falling asleep. They do need to learn to do this themselves. The only way they can do that is having that practice to do so. So expect those disturbed nights. It should only take you 3 nights before, 4 nights before that your child is completely arms free. They will get used to sleeping again, I promise. Maybe get started on a Friday night. The hard work is done by the new week. Good luck with this transition. It isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. I'll see you in the next video.